Hey guys, this is Srinivas coming live to you from the IIFT exam center. I have just come out of the center. I'm going to talk to you, give you the first cut analysis of what happened in the last 2 years of the IIFT paper. So let's start section wise and the overall, the paper pattern. There was no change there. Overall, the number of questions from each section was expected. Thankfully, this is the third year that IIFT is keeping the number of questions same. So last 2 years it was 110 per year, and it is the same this year also. As expected, there were 20 questions from GK, 25 from Quant, 35 from Verbal, and 30 from DILR. So overall, the paper pattern was as expected. However, there were certain changes within the paper. So let's go ahead and take a look at each one of the sections. I'll start with the first section that came to me, which is Quant. So Quant this year and last year, if I take a comparison so that you get an idea, I believe the sections were more or less similar. Last year they were about 5 to 6 questions which were easy. This year also they were about 4 to 5 questions which were easy. The only difference is, I would say, last year there were certain direct questions, but in this year I don't think there are any direct questions. Probably one odd question was direct, but otherwise the questions are easy, but it requires a little bit of thinking. But I will not call these 5-6 questions to be very difficult. It is doable. But the remaining questions, that's where the problem came. The remaining questions were a bit lengthy. It requires unnecessary calculations, decimal calculations, and a lot of questions had approximate values asked. So the numbers were not very nice to be calculating. I mean, I had to divide numbers with 13s and 19s. It was not a neat calculation. It was a messy calculation. So a student who is looking at getting into the IIFT top score using Quant would have a bit of a problem here, because Quant was not really the scoring area in my opinion. Yes, they were easy questions. You can clear the cutoff if you pick the right questions. The mantra was to go through the entire set without sticking to every question. See the question, if you feel it is easy, do it, otherwise move on. That's how you're supposed to have gone through the Quant section. Moving on to the English. So English section of 35 questions, the breakup was 19 questions of vocab and grammar versus 16 questions of RC. 4 RC passages of 4 questions each, so it's 4 4s are 16. But this year, it was really different from last year as far as English was concerned. Last year, the RC paper was very lengthy. The RC passage, we had about 550 to 600 words questions coming in. This year, we basically had simple, nice passages. Almost all 4 RCs could have been attempted by a student if the student is good. But ideally, I would say 2 passages to 3 passages were good enough to be to attempt. The problem was not in the reading. The reading of the RC was not the problem. The problem was in the options. The options were close, but again, not for all the questions. Some options had really confusing, statements given which were very close to each other. In fact, I remember 1 or 2 questions where I couldn't, in the first read, I could not figure out the difference between 2 of the options. Then I had to spend another 10-15 seconds to understand, oh, there is a small change in the word that they have used. So that was it. That's how it was. But overall, I would say the RC 16 questions were doable. In fact, a student wants to score in English, the student should have gone towards the RC, because the remaining 19 questions were really torturous. It was vocab, and vocab. Most of it was vocab. And I consider myself to be a decent vocab person, but it was really difficult for me. So the RC part was doable, but the vocab part is something which would have really stumped the students. But the flip side of this, the advantage of this is, because vocab will take less amount of time, you will quickly realize that the vocab is not the kind of paper that you need to spend more time in this particular paper. You'll quickly shift focus into RC and probably get marks there. So a student who realizes that in the exam will be having the upper edge. Moving on to the third section, which is DILR. Now this particular section had 30 questions, and these 30 questions will actually be the game changer this year in the paper, because compared to last year, this year's section of DI and LR was really doable. Last year, LR was almost untouchable and DI was easy. But this year, both DI and LR questions were really doable. In fact, you could have picked up 2 or 3 sets in logic, and you could have done 1 or 2 sets in DI. In fact, there were 2 sets in DI which were very straightforward, which were very easy. That's straight away 8 questions. That's 24 marks. And there were about 2. So the good thing about LR is they were not lengthy sets of 4 questions. They were smaller sets of 2 questions. There were some sets with 3 to 4 questions too. But a good student would start focusing on the smaller set, because you will be able to crack them very quickly and move on to the next set. So a good student would easily be able to attempt 6 to 7 in DI as well as 6 to 7 in logic. And the last section, which is your overall of GK, as usual, as expected, GK was no change. It was as bad as ever. Even a good student who reads well would not be able to get more than 5 to 6 net corrects. So if you have attempted 4 or 5 and expecting 3 corrects, you're through. Don't worry too much about it. GK is not the game changer at all. So in a nutshell, this year's paper quant is similar to last year, plus or minus 1 question difference. That's it, not much. The English section will be slightly different because there were 16 questions of RC which were doable, but 19 questions of vocab which were not really good, not really easy, versus last year where RC was very lengthy, whereas vocab was doable. And which basically means I'm expecting the English cutoff to, or the marks to go down a little, because the number of questions which are not attemptable were higher in vocab. Then moving on to moving on to DILR. DILR will really be the game changer. If you want to maximize your score, you should have attempted a lot more questions in DI and LR. This is a section which was the easiest of the 3 sections this year, and somebody who realized this would have done well in the exam. And finally, GK, no change versus last year. The net effect of GK will remain to be the same as last year. And that, my friends, is in a nutshell what happened in today's particular exam of IIFT. Let me take a few comments that are coming my way. Let me quickly take a look at what is happening. Just a moment. All right. So I have got a few queries coming my way. So let me take a look at what are the questions. All right. Yeah, the interface was very bad. That's one thing which I want to say, as Shubham Agarwal is pointing out. The interface was horrible. You can't scroll left and right. It is easily, you have to, zoom up, zoom out and zoom in. It is really cumbersome. Trust me, this is one of the worst interfaces that I've come across. NTS should really look into this, and it's such a big organization, but making this kind of an interface for an exam like this, really not appreciated. At least I personally feel that this is one of the worst interfaces of all the MBA entrance exams that I've written till now. Just rain, cutoff will decrease. I will come back to the cutoffs, my friend, overall, because as I said, quant was same, GK was same, LRDA was easier. Verbal will have a slight change, but my sense is that the net effect of verbal, slightly lower cutoff, versus the net effect of DILR giving a larger cutoff requirement, the overall cutoff, in my opinion, will be actually a bit higher this year. Because the DILR was a lot more easier compared to the difficulty level of verbal. So students will end up scoring higher in the DILR part. Let me see if there are any other cutoff expectations. As I said, guys, I'll be live with you in 1 hour exactly, 1:45. So I'll be coming to you with all the cutoff expectations with proper numbers and analysis with my team. So I'll catch you in an hour. Stay tuned into our channel. Thank you, and signing off from BYJU'S Exam Prep.